How's it going, everybody? My name is John, and today, in a direct follow-up to the episode I made last week, we are once again going to talk about Zohran Mamdani, and I do believe I'm saying his name correctly this time. Zohran Mamdani. I apologize for last week as I pronounced his name and Curtis Sliwa's name wrong. I believe I'm saying both of those names correctly, but if I'm not, know that I'm not doing it out of any direct or intentional disrespect, but rather because I'm an American, and it's in my blood to mispronounce things and not know how to say things. But without further ado, we're going to jump into the video. I do mind the dogs. We're going to jump into the video talking about Zohran Mamdani now that he has won the election and has become the mayor of New York City. In the last video, I addressed the question of how is it that an open socialist, someone who openly promotes socialist ideals, is actually the front runner to become the next mayor of New York City. And I broke down all the reasons why, and primarily why I think Andrew Cuomo was a worse alternative to Zohran Mamdani. I wouldn't necessarily vote for Zohran Mamdani. I do have a lot of vehement disagreements with his policy, but the choice between him and Cuomo, Mamdani is clearly the better candidate. So now that Zohran has won the election, which I thought was going to happen, I'm not necessarily upset about that. I hope this is a wake-up call to both political parties. That the Democrats couldn't get their establishment pick up there. Michael Bloomberg donated millions upon millions of dollars to him. And the Republicans didn't even have a shot in the election and got their asses kicked in general on Election Day last Tuesday. I hope this is a serious wake-up call that the American people, they're willing to jump to socialism because they don't see any healthy alternatives. They see two corrupt piece of crap political parties and nobody feels any relation to them. We don't feel like they represent the interests of the people in the country. So it's as pretty simple as that. But after the election, since the election results came out, I've been seeing a lot of blame game being thrown. People are blaming the Groypers and the far right, fringe right. Other people are blaming Curtis Sliwa for not dropping out. And I want to address that one first because that one to me is the absolute stupidest claim. The idea that if Curtis Sliwa dropped out, that Andrew Cuomo would have been able to take all of his votes. Everybody who would have voted for Sliwa obviously would have just voted for Cuomo. It's not like Sliwa literally despises Cuomo or anything. But let's do the math here. You could do simple math to debunk the point that if Sliwa dropped out, that Cuomo would have won. And let's assume, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that every single one of Curtis Sliwa's voters changed their vote for Andrew Cuomo if Sliwa dropped out. Andrew Cuomo still would have lost. Still would have lost. The election results from what I've been seeing was 52% to Zohran Mamdani, 40% to Andrew Cuomo, and another 8% to Curtis Sliwa. Then the argument becomes, well, if Curtis Sliwa would have dropped out, this would have motivated people who didn't vote to vote because the election would have been closer. I don't think that's the case. If people think that Zohran is this massive threat to democracy as a socialist that apparently the right and the left has tried to paint him as, then they would have been voting anyway. The idea that if somebody dropped out, and there's still a pretty decent gap there, that's 4 percentage points. It's not like it was 50.5 to 49.5. Even if every single one of Sliwa's voters voted for Andrew Cuomo, it still would have been a 4% gap. That's pretty substantial. It's not necessarily neck and neck still. So this idea that Sliwa is somehow to blame is absolutely ridiculous. Then I see people posting tweets, and this is following Vivek Ramaswamy's statement. And he said the two reasons that the Republicans lost in New York and lost on Election Day in general is because they're not focusing on affordability and that they need to focus more heavily on affordability. And secondly, because apparently the fringe right, that's not what Vivek said, but I've been seeing people twisting his words after he said that the right was focusing on identity politics. And I see people blaming it on Nick Fuentes' followers, the Groypers, are blaming it on the fringe right, saying, yeah, these guys are the ones that are promoting identity politics. It's not the fringe right that was promoting identity politics in this run up to the New York election. It was the mainstream right, the Trump dick rider accounts, these anons, as I like to call them. Anon meaning anonymous account, accounts that literally, it could be some 500-pound fat dude in his basement typing away, oh yeah, well, this is what happened. These are the accounts doing it. And this is what I would consider to be the mainstream right. Some examples for you. End Wokeness has 3.9 or almost 4 million followers, or maybe 3 million at the time of me recording. And Libs of TikTok that has 4.5 million followers. Just for reference, Nick Fuentes just surpassed 1 million followers. So which one of these is the more mainstream accounts? And if you guys don't believe me, let me give you guys a couple of examples that I found of these mainstream right-wing accounts peddling actual racism. I'm not the one to cry wolf. I don't assume that everything's racist. I don't think that all white people are racist. I'm not one to push this narrative that everything's racist. But here are some actual undeniable examples of End Wokeness and Libs of TikTok using identity politics that no doubt played a part in Andrew Cuomo losing the election. Because when people see this type of rhetoric coming from the right wing, they're just going to vote against the candidate that's opposite. They might not even be fully aware of Mamdani's policies, but to counteract that crap, oh yeah, they're going to vote for it. First of all, both accounts, Libs of TikTok and End Wokeness, criticized Zohran Mamdani for eating rice with his hands. Like, this was the big talking point of the election was, look, he eats with his hands. He's not like you. Don't vote for him. Meanwhile, Andrew Cuomo is a multi-millionaire, rich politician, former governor of New York. Oh yeah, he's just like me. Super relatable guy. With his sexual allegations, super relatable. Super relatable. Then they compared if Zohran Mamdani was elected to the 9/11 attack. What an absolutely absurd talking point. It's the same, and people will criticize the left for this. The right wing will say that you can't compare us to those four-letter word guys from the 1940s with the evil little man with the silly mustache. You guys know what I'm talking about. The game Yahtzee, I can't say that word on YouTube, which is once again absolutely ridiculous, but I've talked about that before. The right wing will say, you can't compare us to those guys. You can't say that we're fascist. That's awful rhetoric that could result in political violence. And to an extent, I agree with them. But then those same people will turn around and say that if Zohran Mamdani's elected, it's equivalent to a terror attack that took the life of over 2,000 people. It's ridiculous. If somebody went, and God forbid, I would never wish this upon anybody, if someone went and took out Zohran Mamdani after seeing those statements, we could blame those right-wing accounts, right? If you're following the same logic that if calling Trump a fascist led to the attempt on his life, and that calling Charlie Kirk a fascist led to the tragic event that happened to him, if something happened to Mamdani, can we blame these accounts that are equivalating him to an awful terror attack? I think that logic holds up. And that's absolute ridiculous hypocrisy from the left. Or not from the left, sorry. I'm used to calling out both sides over here. That's absolutely ridiculous hypocrisy from the right to do that. So then you had the fact that Trump and Elon Musk both quasi-endorsed Cuomo. Trump saying that in a 60 Minutes interview that he would prefer an awful Democrat to an actual communist. But then in that interview does not explain how Zohran Mamdani would be a communist. Could you argue that some of Zohran Mamdani's reviews or policies are radically socialist? I would say yes. There's a lot of policies that Zohran has that I don't agree with. I believe Zohran Mamdani is in favor of taxpayer-funded gender-affirming care surgeries, which I am not in favor of. He wants government-run grocery stores that are going to sell at wholesale price. I don't agree with this because the government-run grocery stores, if they're allowed to sell at wholesale price, cheaper than the local businesses, and those local businesses will go out of business because people are obviously going to go to the store with lower prices. And then once the local businesses are out, the government will have full control of the grocery stores, and you only be able to buy the products that they want you to buy, and you'll have to pay the prices that they decide that the people need to pay. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't trust the government, and that goes for both sides. So there are certain Zohran Mamdani policies that I disagree with, and you could argue are communistic in nature. Trump doesn't explain any of that. He makes a blanket statement, the same thing that the right wing accuses the left of doing all the time, making these blanket statements without any evidence or facts to back it up. And I think Trump talking about Zohran Mamdani, an election for the mayor of a U.S. city, was not important to Trump. Trump has all sorts of issues. He should be talking about the government shutdown. He should be talking about the Russia-Ukraine conflict that still isn't solved. He should be talking about the Israel-Gaza ceasefire deal that he was able to help obtain, which that one we could all agree, those are things that need to be talked about. We need to be talking about the shutdown. Millions of people are losing jobs and pay and all sorts of stuff. But yet Trump is going to worry about a local election and make blanket statements calling him a communist, even though I don't know if it's because Trump is too dumb to actually list the reasons why Zohran Mamdani it could be considered that, or if it's because Trump is just lazy, or a combination of the two. But this is one of the things that I absolutely hate about Trump is he's the one that started this name calling and viciousness in politics. And people on the right might want to deny that. They'll point fingers and say, well, Trump didn't start it. The left-wing media and news outlets attacked him first. And let's say that's true. Haven't you guys ever heard the old adage, two wrongs don't make a right? And this goes for the left too. I don't like that the media and that people on the left throw out the name calling as much as they do. I don't think there's really a place for that in politics and political discussion if you want to have an actual productive society. But you want to know who's truly to blame for Zohran Mamdani winning. And this is the reason why I don't think that if Curtis Sliwa dropped out of the election, that all of his voters who are undoubtedly right-wing, like if you're voting Curtis Sliwa, this 8% of people, over Andrew Cuomo and Mamdani, you're keeping true to your actual Republican/conservative principles. And I can almost respect that to a certain extent. I wouldn't have voted for Sliwa because, if someone's not going to win, there's no point voting for them. But, maybe you could think, if enough people to actually, stay true to their principles, then Sliwa can make a major dent on the election. But this clip, and I played this clip last week, but it's worth playing one more time, is, in my opinion, the main reason why Zohran Mamdani was able to beat Andrew Cuomo.
Always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo?
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel, followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, two of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani?
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
In case you guys didn't know this, people that are on the right and that are super conservative are against foreign involvement in funding. What does it matter if the mayor of New York makes his first visit to Israel? And in that clip, the commentators try to press him afterwards and say, are you saying that you wouldn't go to Israel just because he said he would stay in America and help his constituents? Do you really think that this whole 8% of Curtis Sliwa's voters would have just jumped ship to Mamdani if he dropped out of the election? I would argue no. A lot of them probably wouldn't have voted at all. They're not going to vote for Andrew Cuomo, a known Democrat that they know has messed up the state from the right-wing perspective. And if you measure every single metric, and this should be bipartisan agreement, Andrew Cuomo did no good for New York. Homelessness, poverty, crime rates, nothing is better in NYC from the time Andrew Cuomo took over as governor to 2021. Immigration, I could keep going on and listing everything, especially the things that the right-wingers are against. Like, did gender-affirming care and trans surgeries become more prevalent, or did they go down under Andrew Cuomo in between 2013 and 2021? Well, we all know the answer. So if there was no right-wing alternative and it's just Andrew Cuomo versus Zohran Mamdani, a lot of those voters don't even vote. So this idea, once again, that if Curtis Sliwa dropped out of the election, that magically Andrew Cuomo would have been able to win even though he lost by 12%, is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And just to circle back here, because I forgot to mention these points, on the subject of end wokeness and libs of TikTok and the mainstream right being racist, not the fringe right, the mainstream right. I don't even know if I heard Nick Fuentes or any Tucker Carlson or any of these guys mention Zohran Mamdani. Not really. I heard Tucker talk about that awful Israel clip that I played earlier where they ask all the candidates and they all say Israel except for Mamdani, who gives an American first answer and says he would stay here. But then you have end wokeness and libs of TikTok. They make their major talking points, like I said earlier. They criticize Mamdani for eating with his hands, and then they criticize him for campaigning in Spanish and in Arabic. Well, I'm just impressed. You just showed me that Zohran Mamdani knows how to fluently speak. Not one, not two. He's not bilingual. He's trilingual. You're making me want to vote for him. And then you got this stupid racist talking points, like comparing him to the 9/11 terror attack, like I mentioned earlier. These are the actual reasons why Zohran Mamdani was able to win the election. It's not the fringe right's fault or these far right people. It's the mainstream's fault. And it's both political parties for doing such a crap job over these past couple decades to the point where people are disillusioned enough to choose socialism. You can't blame people for wanting something new if the suffering in a place like New York City just keeps getting worse and worse. But that's about all I wanted to say about Zohran Mamdani. Congratulations to you for winning the election. I will admit, as a 24-year-old, it's kind of cool to see somebody who's only 10 years older than me, Mamdani being 34, be elected. And I truly hope that New York becomes a better place under Zohran Mamdani. I'm not 100% confident that it will. Like I said, I do have disagreements with his policy. But let's say Zohran Mamdani is able to pass some form of universal health care, and the prices in New York City are inflation, or, the economy in New York City doesn't immediately collapse, and he keeps private insurance options open, and it helps more people get the help and services they need. Because me, as a 24-year-old man, there's no reason why I should be paying massive medical insurance premiums, which could be going up after the shutdown, because one of the things that's going away at the end of 2025 is an 8.5% of your income insurance cap. So with insurance premiums going up, if Zohran Mamdani can pass a universal healthcare policy that works and doesn't destroy the economy, I'm all for it, because there are countries in Europe that do it successfully. I'm not 100% sure that the US could be one of those countries, but why not try it on a small level? Not that New York City is small, obviously being like the biggest city in the United States. Why not try it on a city level instead of trying it on a massive level? And then if it works, maybe other places can start implementing it. But I say all that because I had an interesting comment the other day that said, if Zohran Mamdani is able to actually make New York a better place, and it genuinely does better under him, would you reconsider your position on socialism? Because I'm somebody that opposes socialism. And I would have to say, to a certain extent, yes. Of course, there's caveats to that. Just because Zohran Mamdani, for example, let's say the free public transportation and the free universal health care work. But let's say taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries happen and government-run grocery stores happen. If some aspects of socialism work and New York overall becomes a better place, that doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with all socialism in general, like those policies I just listed that I disagree with. But it has to make you take a second look at socialism. Maybe there is some aspects of socialism that could be helpful in running a productive and affordable society. And we already know that. There are some aspects of socialism that even the farthest to the right people agree with. For example, the fire department is a socialist service. Yes, you pay taxpayer dollars, but the fire department is free to everybody. If you have a fire and you don't pay taxes, the fire department is still going to come and put out that fire. No questions asked. It's not a service that applies to you. The medical system, yes, they'll charge you once you get into the hospital. They'll charge you up the ass. But the ambulance will come and pick you up regardless of if you're a taxpayer in that city. So, for example, you're in New York, you go to Florida, you have an emergency, the ambulance is still going to help you. These are socialist services that we all agree with. So maybe it extends a little bit further than that. That doesn't make me a radical socialist, but there might be some aspects that we might want to embrace for an actual, like I said, more productive and affordable society. But now, actually, that's all I wanted to say about Zohran Mamdani. Once again, congratulations to him. On a lighter note, I would like to talk about GTA 6 being delayed. I myself am a massive gamer. I've played essentially every single Grand Theft Auto and Rockstar game, dating all the way back to Vice City, which I first played when I was 3 years old, all the way back in 2004. You can imagine little 3-year-old me seeing some of the stuff in GTA. But I wouldn't say that it traumatized me. You know, GTA back then was more like a cartoon. I wouldn't let my 3-year-old play GTA 5 with the 4K Ultra HD graphics. But me playing Vice City as a kid didn't really have a traumatic effect. But anyway, to get back on track, GTA 6 gets delayed another few months, now coming out in November of 2026, at least as of right now, because after they delayed it the first time, I'm sure we all bet that they wouldn't have delayed it a second time. And controversially, and I want you guys to hear me out on this. I am not necessarily looking forward to GTA 6. I'm looking forward to playing it myself and playing the single player and maybe playing the online with some friends and having fun. But in terms of the game hitting the public, I am not a fan. If you guys remember back in 2018 and 19, remember how mainstream Fortnite got because it was a free game? GTA 6 is going to dwarf the hell out of that. Everybody knows about GTA 6. And with such a long gap in between GTA 5, which is one of the most successful games of all time, and GTA 6, the hype going into this game is absolutely insane. And that's the first reason why I don't think that I'm looking forward to GTA 6. The hype is so much that no doubt, no matter how good the game is, Rockstar could make a 99 out of 100, or it could even be 100 out of 100, a perfect game. There's gonna be people that criticize it, nitpick it, and point out every little thing that's wrong with the game. Maybe the map's too big. They don't want to drive around from one side of the map. It shouldn't take a half hour to get from one side of the map to the other. Maybe people complain about the guns, I shouldn't say guns on YouTube. Maybe people complain about the weapons and say that the weapons aren't balanced and that there's too many or that there's too much detail or it's too realistic. That's even a complaint that I've seen, is that Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption 2, the last game Rockstar made, have gotten too realistic. And I'm not looking forward to the constant pessimistic people on social media that are going to clout chase off of this small percentage of people that are going to hate GTA 6. But because there's so many people that are going to play it, it's still going to be a decent amount of people that people are going to have to clout chase off of it. The second reason why I'm not looking forward to GTA 6 on the subjects of politics in this channel is people are going to politicize the hell out of it. Let's say there's something in there that makes fun of LGBTQ people. People on the Republican side are going to say, look, even Grand Theft Auto has to, I hate when those posts pop up. Even this has to acknowledge that this is so bad. Or there's going to be something making fun of Trump in the game because this is the first Grand Theft Auto that's released since Trump was president. The left's going to go, look, even Rockstar knows how bad Trump is and they have to make fun of it. I'm not looking forward to the politicization of this game. With how mainstream it's going to be, both sides are going to jump in on it and take every little thing as a political win. I hope Rockstar stays true to their roots and makes fun of both of the stupid sides. That's how it could make the majority of people happy. Because remember, there's 70 million people that voted for Kamala Harris, 72 million to be exact, and 77 million that voted for Trump. That leaves over 150 million people in this country that just didn't vote. So if you want to appease to the majority of people, and I really hope that Rockstar does this, you don't want to pick sides. You just want to make fun of both, do what you usually do. People are going to point out those things, which is going to create more haters because they're going to see, they're going to see this one post on social media and think, Rockstar is biased towards my political side. How dare they not like my political cult sports team? And not looking forward to that either. And on the subject of political capitalization on GTA 5, I'm not looking forward to Ben Shapiro plays GTA 5 or Gavin Newsom tries GTA 5 on all these stupid websites, because undoubtedly people are going to be capitalizing on this. They realize that people have a loyalty to Rockstar Games because of the absolute pristine quality of the Grand Theft Auto series and their games in general. So undoubtedly, you're going to see Ben Shapiro play GTA 5. You're going to see Hassan Piker and Destiny play GTA 5 and give their reviews of it. And they're going to grade it on these political scales, once again politicizing everything. And like I addressed in the last episode, media, entertainment, video games, TV shows, all need to be separate from politics, because once you have the politicization of literally everything, it dehumanizes the other side. And that, to me, causes more political violence than any rhetoric that people are spewing. Once you're able to dehumanize the other side and say we have nothing in common, is the minute that you see them as an enemy, and that's the minute that political violence becomes possible. But I would say that me saying I'm not looking forward to it is being a bit hyperbolic. Of course I'm looking forward to the game. I'm going to play the hell out of it when it comes out. I'll probably even do a review. But when I do my review, it won't be a Ben Shapiro or a Destiny review of the game. It will be a genuine review of the game. We're not going to take into account any politics. We're not going to take into account any bull crap. We're going to review the actual gameplay, the story, the things that all of us gamers are genuinely looking forward to with the game. And I hope the mainstream media and these political commentators and haters don't mess it up for us. But anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know if you're looking forward to Grand Theft Auto 6 in the comments below, or what you think, or what you think of Zohran Mamdani being elected. I will see you all in the next video. Make sure you hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace out, everybody. Stay safe out there.